companies are getting together and saying, I just need 10 partners to coordinate. I just need 10 partners to work together. We will move our entire ledger technology, right, to each other, right? But because we trade so many times amongst ourselves, there's no need for us to have an intermediary to keep records of these things. We can just share a distributed database ourselves. So private chains are a way to solve the problem of coordination. We basically work together to coordinate and use blockchain as our underlying technology. So a lot of interest is happening here in the financial services space around private chains. Then we have what we call substitution, where basically we're going to try to come up with a real substitute for existing things that are at scale. So here we are seeing marketplaces, etc., emerge where instead of Amazon as being the bottleneck where we have to transact through, we can imagine, again, a peer-to-peer network of merchants and consumers where we are all connected on a peer-to-peer basis with each other, and we can all start to transact with each other. So instead of a centralized hub like Amazon and then people and merchants on different sides, right, we're imagining this as a substitution. And this is also now being explored and being investigated. But you can imagine that there's a lot of work here to make this kind of a distributed marketplace take hold over the advantages of a centralized marketplace. Things like search and discovery and so forth need to be solved in the substitute marketplace aspect. And then finally, what we see are transformation. And here, in this quadrant, what's going on is we're reimagining applications. And my favorite is this world of sort of smart contracts, which I think is still far away, but there's many attempts here to run prototypes to figure out smart contracts. And the notion here is that, imagine if I have a will for myself, and currently the will is established, and then when some event happens, somebody expires, then I will, my lawyers will then do the work to make sure that all the transactions that I want in the will take place. Now, if you go to smart contracts, right, that goes away completely. We don't need an intermediary like a lawyer to do all the distributions. Once the event that triggers the will takes place, then all the other transactions that are subsequently built into the logic of the will also be triggered automatically as well. And you can imagine that will is just one example. Deeds for property, contracts amongst organizations, even parking tickets can also be done this way. There's a question by a viewer, so we'll take that.
So related to what you're just talking about, Catherine is asking, will the blockchain lead to some types of jobs disappearing?
Oh, yeah. Will some types of jobs disappear? I think that's a great question. And I think this is a question that we're all facing now in the world of digital technologies. And it used to be that technologies would replace blue-collar workers. And now we're in a world of technologies potentially impacting white-collar workers as well as pink-collar workers. My sense is that the intermediary jobs will be at risk in the sense of just think through the amount of effort that organizations place on recording transactions, on validating transactions. Just think how big large accounting companies are, right, that go through our books to validate our books, right? Massive organizations, massive revenue for those organizations. And so there is worry that, in fact, those types of jobs might get automated away, might no longer be needed to that same scale. But the way to think about that is that then actually releases funds in the economy for other more high-value jobs in the marketplace. And so that becomes a key element for both workers that may be in these positions that are at risk, but also for companies and for governments to think through how the transitions will be handled once these technologies start to take over. You know, a related example is if you think about messaging, right? You think about SMS messaging versus messaging on Facebook or WhatsApp. The infrastructure required to support SMS messaging requires many more people than what WhatsApp had, you know, when it had 500 million or 1 billion people now on their platform. And so there is now a question about substitution. The digital native technologies require less labor than the existing older technologies, and we'll have to learn how to figure out what to do about these transitions going through. So this 2x2 helps us understand where we think technologies that use blockchain, and more importantly, the applications for the technologies will evolve. We're currently living in a world here of sort of single-use applications and localization. Lots of attempts are going on here, and you can start to think yourself, if you start thinking about your jobs, your functions, your organizations, where could a ledger that was shared across organizations would be useful? And then there's now early work